Hey,
Hey, Misfits Managed Nation.
Misfits Managed Nation. First and foremost, like, subscribe, and share. Share,
Share, subscribe,
subscribe.
and like.
There we go. Can a boy say it?
You say share, subscribe, and like. No,
What?
not in for that. You can see that. Well, I guess if you are not watching us live, my boys Cooper and Luke have decided to hop on and grace us with their presence for a few minutes, and they're excited about it. Can you boys say hi?
Hi.
They're getting introduced to this fun little world and being on camera. So I'm excited to share it with them. But so it has been a crazy, super fun, but crazy day for me. I got to take a day and go to a local learning and development conference where I got to do all sorts of stuff, networking, learning, so much stuff. So it has been a day of information consuming, and I am tired, but here we go.
Okay.
What about you?
I can respect that. I'd say likewise, we've had a very busy day, which feels like an extension of a very busy, fulfilling weekend, which led in, which was a continuation of a very busy week last week. So I've been a very, very busy boy.
Yes, you have.
So
I'm gonna put this out there because hopefully it will help. We were supposed to have Abigail on again tonight. She felt that she needed to share something with the community, and she got pulled away again. We don't know exactly what's going on, but I wanted to send up some prayers that everything goes good for her, and that I know she's had a lot going on. She had a child in the hospital last week, and she's got a lot coming at her with everything that she's doing right now. So prayers up to her that for her mental strength, for herself, her family, and for full healing.
right. I think I got a chance to talk to her a little bit today, and she had a powerful word. I don't know exactly what she wanted to share, but I was just in awe of our discussion. So I'm going to pause. Misfits Managed Nation, we are people of action here.
Yep.
And we have a dear sister, single mom, 2 young kids, 1 special needs, that's been in the hospital, and she needs us right now. She needs our strength. She needs our energy. She needs our encouragement and our support. So,
Yep.
Abigail, this is for you, and baby girl Belle, this is for you. And Jazzy, I know you have to endure as well, so it's for all 3 of you. So, Lord, we just come to you right now, as humbly as we know how, and we petition you on behalf of our dear sister and your beloved daughter, Lord, that you would touch, that you would minister, that you would meet every need, first and foremost with Belle, Lord, that you would touch her from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet, that you would bring healing, let your healing virtue flow all throughout her body, let her recover, give the doctors the wisdom and the insight and the instrumentation and technology to use to bring her situation to an end. Let total and complete healing come over her right now. For Jazzy, Lord, that you would just give her peace and understanding of her little sister who is sick. Let her be encouraged and be strength for her mother. And then for the mom, Abigail, Lord, I just pray peace that surpasses all understanding, that would cover her and cloak her, that you would strengthen her from the inside out, that you would surround her with your presence and your love. Let her know that you are there, that you have not forsaken her, forgotten her, that you were there with her in and out and all throughout this process, and that the victory will come and a testimony will come from this situation, which is exactly what I believe she was about to share tonight. And then the enemy struck again. So I bind the hands of the enemy. And I decree and declare victory in this story and in their lives. Lord, that you will have the final say. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So,
So thank you for that. Um, I think we pivot, and I think tonight's subject matter. Cooper, get that down. I think tonight's subject matter actually kind of breathes right into that for her and for us as well. And I'm gonna. This is something you've been wanting to dig into for a while, so I'm gonna let you do the honors of introducing it.
oh, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to
Let's
go. I
do it.
know I was prepared to coach tonight
Yep.
and lead, Abby through her
Yep.
discussion. But here at Misfits Managed, we got to pivot and
We roll
sometimes
with it.
roll with the punches. So
Yep.
the word tells us to be in season. I mean, to be ready in season and out of season.
Yep.
So I had to rush home, get on my computer, and get to work. So
Yep.
tonight's Misfits Manage episode, we're talking about when you fall. When you fall. When you fall. Because it's not a matter of if you fall, it's a matter of when you fall. Um,
Definitely a matter of when you fall and how much you fall. Cooper
right.
is saying good night. They're off to bed.
Okay. Night, boys.
Night, night.
Bye bye. Yeah. For sure, when you fall and likely how many times you fall, right?
Right. So we're going to address that really from top to bottom
Yeah.
tonight. I think we're able to put together 10 really solid, strong points that speak to our subject matter topic tonight, when you fall. And I'll just jump right in. You know
Yep.
me, I'm not one for small talk. Let's get to work. An hour, so let's get to work. Number one is, how many times have we tried something but only did it half-heartedly? In a mindset and a heart set where we're not all in, knowing we can use that as an out for why we failed if we do fail. How many times have we done that?
Um, a lot.
I mean, we all do. It's kind of a built-in excuse system that, you know, I know everybody doesn't think this is going to work. I know this is outside the norm, or this is an extraordinary event or task.
Yeah.
No one believes I'm going to be successful at it. So if I don't do it all in, now I have an out for when I fail.
Well, and I, for me, it hasn't been that long, generally speaking, um, that I haven't been, I won't even say I haven't been afraid because there's still that fear that I'm trying to work through and it won't probably ever leave. Um, I used to be terrified to fail.
Hmm.
Um, and because of that, I did always do things half, whether I meant to or not, or whether I was like, well, you know, if I go all in for this, or if I give it my full effort, then that's more that I have that can hurt me, that's more that I have to lose, or that's the harder I will fall.
Right, right,
And I mean, honestly, from where I'm standing now, hindsight's always 2020, right?
right. Exactly.
But I would say from perspective now that I would rather go in, fail forward and fall, because the harder you fall, if you do, when you do fail and you have to pivot, the bigger the lesson you learn. And that can sound kind of bad, of like, I don't know, painful, but yeah, it is. But the bigger then you recover.
Right. I love that. Love that, which kind of leads us into point two. But I have to kind of reflect a little bit on point one that,
Yeah.
if you keep telling yourself that and leaving that out, I mean, your life is over. You're
Yeah.
going to literally fail at everything that you do going forward because you're always leaving an out there. I mean, if you're going to try something, try it, be all in. But back to your point, when you're talking about failing, boy, this was a great lead into point two. Is that the person who has never failed has no glory. None.
Nope.
The person that's failed yet got back up has earned glory and honor. The person that's failed 20 times and got back up 21 times has even greater glory. That's
Yep.
the glory and honor, is failing and getting back up. We're not going to focus on failing because we all do that. When it's inevitable that we're going to fail.
You know, it was something that took me a long time to get my head wrapped around the fact that if you're failing, at least it means you're trying something. You're
Right,
trying something new. If
right,
you're failing, you are trying. If you're not failing, there is something wrong because you're not trying to grow. You're not trying to better yourself. You're not trying to um, expand your comfort zone.
right
All
there.
of those things. And the more you try, the more you fail. But we tend as a society to stop at that and just say, yeah, the more you try, the more you fail. Well, yeah, but you got to keep going on that and saying, well, the more I fail, the more I learn, the bigger I learn, and then I get right back up again.
Yeah, and we're talking about structured fails,
Yep.
calculated fails. We're not talking about you just being frivolous and just going out and doing things and winging it and failing, and then there's no glory in that. That's being stupid.
Well, I've done that too.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking. And I have to. I'm not saying that either, but we're talking about if you want to gain glory, Lauren. The glory is when you put yourself back to point number one, when you're all in. You
Yeah.
know, you burned up all the boats. There's no way off the island,
Yep.
and you're all in, and you fail. There's glory in that when you get back up.
Yep.
Because there's lessons learned that will make you better, stronger, greater in the next experience
Yeah.
that you only gain because you failed.
I mean, um what's the example of the light bulb? How many times I can't even remember who the heck the quote is about now. Should be I want to say Einstein. Because somebody
Probably.
mentioned Einstein.
Sounds right.
Somebody mentioned Einstein to me earlier today. Anyway, squirrel. But
Squirrel.
how many how many times did they figure out how to not make a light bulb? You're always going to have that. Everybody remembers the success story, but nobody wants to talk about the fact of how many failed tries it took them to get there. And the point is, yes, yeah.
Come on,
Hi,
Shannon.
Shannon.
How you doing?
The the point is, like, even Micah's on here. Hi, Micah. Um, it reminds me a lot of cooking. There's a lot of times where you can make something and it's gonna taste like crap. Maybe not Micah's food because Micah's great, but
Micah's food is great.
but you make something and it may not taste great, either to start or the first time. What do? You tweak it, you add things, you figure out where you went wrong. And as you started saying earlier, Garrett, Gary, I told you it has been a day.
Coach G.
Gee. But you pivot like we did tonight.
Right.
You pivot.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we've got to. I think which that glory that we're talking about
Yeah.
from healing comes from our faults. It comes from our
Mm-hmm.
mistakes or our inadequacies. That's where all that's birthed, accomplishing what we've accomplished in spite of all of that stuff,
Yeah.
in spite of the failures, in spite of our weaknesses, in spite of our fears, in spite of our betrayals and disappointments, in spite of the faults. Without those faults, there is no glory because there's no victory in that.
Yeah.
So it's all a recipe for success if you just flow with it.
And then don't give up.
Right.
There is, well, there's a million memes regarding this, but I love the imagery of there's one I like in particular that it's a guy, I don't know, some guy in a tunnel underground or something with a axe or whatever it is. And it's like him digging through, and then on the other side here, it's what he's working for. And it's like the teeniest bit of stuff he's got left to chisel. And it's like he can't see it. He can't see the fact that it's right there. But most of the time, when people quit after they've failed or they feel like they've failed, asterisk, feel like they've failed.
Right.
Because most of the time it's in our head and we haven't actually failed. We just haven't gotten far enough. But it's like
It's an
here,
unrealized failure.
yeah. And it's here's how close you are to everything that you want, everything that you've been working for. But you get so tired and so worn from that dang journey
Right.
that you don't keep going. When in all reality, a couple more chisels, you're there. And then you get to celebrate.
And I would just wonder how many times have we done that
Oh,
in our lives, in our journey, when literally we were at the door of victory and we turned back and quit, gave up, surrendered. We allowed the externals, the fears, the noise of public opinion to sway us and allow us to change. And what we did, what you just said, we pivot and
mm-hmm.
quit. Look at what Shannon just posted, Mark. Can you pull that up real quick? And Shannon is right on line with that. Thank you for that, Shannon.
She says, every failure gets you closer to the success because you eliminate everything that doesn't work. That's on point. Actually, this like goes, so one of the breakouts I went today at my conference was about pivoting.
Right.
And that was one of the big points was you get to where you're making progress and everything, and then you eliminate the points of friction. You eliminate the obstacles so that then you can move forward with as much ease as possible. That's exactly it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, and change is good.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with change. I know we fight change. Change is uncomfortable. It's weird. It's scary, whatever you want to call it. But I think change is important. Now,
Yeah.
I will say for change to make sense, however, there's times that we've changed too much for the negative or for the bad or in the wrong direction, but we
Yeah.
keep going. I think that is probably the only time that change is not in a good situation. And we've got to learn to stop right where we're at. Okay, I made a mistake. I went the wrong direction. I'm down a one-way street and I should have turned right instead of left. It's okay to just stop right where you are, scrap it, and start over brand new.
Well, so I would almost challenge that as maybe you just overextend and go a little bit too far, and it's just a matter of pulling back a little bit and saying, okay, that didn't quite work, and it's just a matter of course correcting. It may not even be a matter of totally scrapping it.
Well, would that be like the GPS saying recalculate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just popped in because I was listening to y'all as I was doing some of the wrapping up a another show. But as y'all don't know, because I don't think I mentioned it last week and everything, y'all know that I produce your show, but I produce other shows as well. But every once in a while, I used to do it with Eric Kelly on a regular basis, who has a Black Business Expo, but get contracted in to do hybrid events. You mentioned doing a conference, Lauren, and everything. So last weekend, literally last Thursday and Friday, I did a conference, and it's my second year doing it, called the Social Work Wealth Conference, which is Eva Ford's brainchild out of New York City, and she's got some other people. And a lot of what they were talking about is literally what y'all were just saying, because I've been editing some of their videos. That was one of my responsibilities and everything. And they were talking about ways that they can pivot, still do the social work, impact work that they like to do, but also make some money at the same time and everything.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that was part of their whole notion of the conference, because one of their keynote speakers said something, and I mentioned on the last show, that I found interesting, and you may have heard the name because y'all are both into the motivational speaker space and all along those lines. But their keynote speaker was Seth Godin, and Seth Godin was given this idea. He's one of the founders of Yahoo, and is a marketing wizard, that you don't need to necessarily go into entrepreneurship, but then most people that think they want to go into entrepreneurship really want to go into freelancing, because there you are more in control of your own destiny and all along those lines. So that was kind of his messaging to them and everything.
Yeah.
They had some interesting thoughts around that. So I just jumped in because, as I said, y'all were talking, and the way y'all were talking about change, I was going like, wait a minute, I think I heard this. I heard this last week. There was like names like 4 unconventional wealth building strategies to combat burnout and things like that. So I'm going like, wait a minute, I think I've been to this particular panel and everything, because we were talking about bridging financial and emotional well-being. So just to let folks know, and hopefully they'll have it up online shortly. But it was just a lot of what y'all are talking about, I heard yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week, for this 2-day conference.
That's good. That's powerful, Mark. I think
Repeating.
I heard that very comment last week. I don't remember who said it, but man, look at what Shannon just says again.
I was going to say, that's awesome.
Starting over isn't a bad thing, because you don't start over from scratch. You start over from a place of experience. Wow.
I have
thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, I have said that exact thing to somebody about 4 times now, because we get such in this mindset, and I think it's just the world today, honestly, that you start over, and it's always, I built this from scratch. I'm starting from scratch. No, you're not. You're not starting from scratch. You're rebuilding on, and you're starting with the foundation already on everything that you've learned from that. So you're now starting on a new, upgraded, thicker foundation from where you were. You're just making it look a little different.
Right.
Hey, Coach, just a quick question along those same lines. That I saw the quote that food is art brought up about. She's failed at cooking so many times to get it great and everything. But I do have a question for both you and Lauren, because I sometimes think that we are resistant to where the message may come from. And I'm just going to give an example. Yesterday, not yesterday, I think it was Saturday, I had to print something at my other job, which y'all have seen me record from every once in a while, which is the Hayti Heritage Center and everything. And I was printing something, and I did the typical thing with the fonts. And I was like, well, the font can only go up to such and such number and everything. And a younger person came by and was like, no, Mark, it can be a bigger font, because it was a font from one of our glass doors that's out of order. And he was like, just type in the number. And I was like, why did I think of that? Because it was very common, but I was learning from somebody that was younger than me. He's a recent college graduate and everything. And I didn't push back against it. I was like, hey, that makes sense. Let's do it that way. But I do sometimes think because of where it's coming from, we are resistant. So I just wanted y'all's thoughts around that, because sometimes we're going like, I don't know if that person got the wisdom that they think they have, so why am I listening to them?
Can I dig into this?
Go ahead. I just had one short comment, but I'll wait till you finish.
No. Short comment. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll just out of the mouth of babes. The Bible tells us that.
Yeah.
You don't put a limitation on wisdom. Out of the mouth of babes, it can come from anybody or anywhere. It can come from, I'll leave it at that.
So a couple points of view, naturally, on that. I have been told things from people who I did not want to hear them from before. it didn't mean that I didn't need to hear them. I
Right.
had to change the filter in which I listened from. And many times I listened from a point of being defensive and angry and or insert something else there. I listened from that filter, and when I changed it and said, you know what, this person thinks a lot different from me, in a sense that maybe their feedback is not bad, because maybe this is something that I struggle with and maybe they're actually pretty good at it. I just don't want to hear it from them. And when I came at it from they're coming at it from a place of love point, yeah, I needed to hear it. And when I did that, I took it a lot better. And I'm like, okay, here's where I put this in. Today, however, another one of my sessions, the one that was called Pivot, actually, was all about shedding light, about thinking differently on the communication challenges between generations. And it's always they're lazy, I don't like how they do this, or whatever. And it comes from both sides. They don't know how to do this. They can't learn new tricks or anything like that. But if you pull back from a real high level perspective, you see that everything has been building blocks from the beginning of honestly the beginning of time. We just keep moving. Sometimes it's been a little bit fast forwarded because technology has gotten things moving faster,
Right.
but everything has been a building block on the next thing. And so with each generation, they have used what they've had when they've had it, whether it be wanting admiration for something, whether it be the way they communicated, whether it be innovation, whatever it is. Each thing has been a building block, but with each new generation, it becomes the new thing, the new technology, the new whatever that each generation is now being introduced to. And because we didn't grow up with it like that, that's just not what we know. And so we don't know how to communicate. For instance, like my grandparents, they like a thank you note. If they give you something, they like that written communication because that's where they grew up and that's what they had.
That's their generation. Yeah.
That is their generation. My generation, Gary's got it. It's all about the text. And you call half the people in my generation and they're not going to answer the phone. They're not going to listen to the voicemail if you leave it. You might as well hang up, send them a text message, and you'll get an immediate response if they can answer you. But now the even younger generations, like, it just kind of keeps on progressing. And I won't go any more deep in this to move on with the topic, but it's looking at it through a lens of knowing what each generation came from, what they had as a generation, what they had access to. If you didn't have access to a phone, if you didn't have access to the technology, you didn't get to use it because it wasn't there.
Right.
So it's coming from a place of understanding. Each generation wants the same thing. They just get it in a different way, and they're used to receiving it in a different way.
Yeah, and all sources aren't wrong, they're just different.
Right.
I think that's the value of being a misfit, is it's okay to be different. It's okay to receive and give in different ways and mythology. So I'm gonna pivot because this other point
let's do it.
punches you in the face.
Perfect.
Oh my God! I hope you're ready for this one. Are
Okay.
y'all ready for this one out there? I had to chew on this as I was writing. I was like, oh wow. But real talk, what happens when you take? I mean, as a misfit, I'm sure do this all the time, and we pause.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a show on that, pausing and slowing down.
Yeah.
But what happens when you do that and you pause and you reflect and you sit in quiet space and you take personal inventory of yourself and your life? And in that space, you come to a realization that all the problems and failures in your life that you've endured are directly because of you.
Yep.
The common denominator in all of that is you.
Kelsey and I were just having a conversation about that earlier tonight, actually.
Boy, does that sting.
You know, it used to, but it doesn't anymore.
Exactly. Love it. Love it.
Personal accountability.
Yes.
And learning to not beat myself up about where I've come from and where I'm at, but rather take accountability for, you know, my actions are a direct result for where I am right now. How do I want that to look going forward, and what can I change now?
See, I see it. I love that because I see that point. I love your response to that point because most people would have shifted, and it shows your growth. Most people would have shifted into a space of pity party.
Yep.
You know, oh, it's me. Now Gary actually sees me. Coach G sees me. You know, or Lauren sees me.
Yep.
But there's an empowerment that comes from that when you realize and you take ownership. Oh my God, there's a dirty word. More problems in your situations. I am where I am because of me.
But part of that is that don't you have to? Because I was actually going to ask another question earlier, but then since y'all went down the pity party, how do I do it? Everything. I can be honest with my own self and everything. Isn't part of the problem with that if you take ownership, you also have to take ownership that there is reasons that you are the common denomination. Like it took me a while to realize that because I was the common denomination, that if there were toxic relationships that I was in and I saw the toxicity in those relationships and everything, and I was the common denominator, that I must have been attracted to certain types of toxic personalities for a reason and everything. Now, what that reason was, I have to figure out, and I still sometimes figure out and everything. But yeah, I saw the common denominator, but I also had to realize that there was a type, for lack of a better term, that I was attracted to in either business or personal lives.
Well, it's almost like a pheromone, Mark.
Huh?
You attracted, it's almost like a pheromone. You attracted that toxicity because you yourself are toxic.
Because you've got trauma.
A broken man draws a broken woman because he's broken. And the more that person heals, they draw a more healed version of their opposite.
Well, that's true, and I can definitely see that.
A lot of the times, which Gary and I have both been working on this, and I don't know what, the past year, 6 months or something. You know where I'm going with this. It is part of healing the trauma and releasing all of that so that you can then say, what does it look like now? Because when you come from a place, when you act from a place of trauma, you're acting from a place of anger, of hurt, of, well, a lot of different other things. And you attract somebody else who is also acting from those things. And then people are like, well, why do I keep attracting that?
Well, that's what I can say, because this is a mark therapy session, even though it could be a mark therapy session. But I'm here to say that that's where it becomes kind of interesting, and that's where I had to realize that it was a past relationship, but it was not a past. It was a past personal relationship that led to that series of toxicities and brokenness.
Yep.
And just put it and everything. Because my parents, even though they are divorced and are been divorced for a number of years, have had some of the most beautiful relationships that I've ever seen. I've got family members that are very non-toxic. Because one of the stereotypes that people have, and that's actually going to get to what I was getting ready to ask about validity, and I may get to that later on, is that broken people come from broken environments. That isn't always the case. That isn't always the case, because broken people can be pulled into brokenness or come from other environments that aren't necessarily broken. So I personally think, that's just me, Coach, that there is a stereotype that all broken people come from broken environments. Whereas I know from my life that isn't the case. There was no brokenness in my life, but me and my brother might have had some situations that caused brokenness in our own lives, but it wasn't as much brokenness in our family lineage. It wasn't like a lot of broken homes and family conflict and violence and things that people stereotype with brokenness.
Well, I think that's all a choice too, because I mean, there's too many cases of a person that was in a broken environment in their home, and they themselves made the choices and decisions not to be broken. They did the work that was required to pull themselves out of that. But also the flip side of that, someone, as you talked about, came out of a perfectly happy, healthy, whole family or background, but moved into broken situations and now is a broken person. Shannon, thank you for that. She mentioned this earlier. She said so many times that I reacted from a space of being triggered, or I'd say broken, instead of seeing the point of view. I mean, how many times did we do that?
So I gotta throw this wrench in there after that conversation, because here's the hard part, and I say this from complete experience. Some very recent, some not so much. It can also be a choice when you're coming from a place of your own trauma, when you're coming from that place and you realize where the trauma comes from, you realize where the toxicity is. Sometimes you have to make a conscious choice, knowing that you're going to go through a valley, knowing that you're going to go through something, to consciously let yourself fall, knowing that you need to fall so that you can then rebuild, like the phoenix I've talked so much about. And we don't want to, because it hurts, it sucks, and it's confusing, and it might mean that you've got to let go of some things that you don't want to let go of. But sometimes you got to let yourself fall.
Yeah. How many times do we fall? Let's just throw it in like in a relationship.
Yeah.
How many times do we fall in a relationship? We know it's falling.
Yeah.
We feel the falling, the pain of that, but I guess we think the pain of leaving is greater than the pain of staying, when all you're doing is a temporary death. The pain of leaving is instantaneous. You can get that punch in the gut, but you'll get over that and you'll be able to grow from that and move on. Whereas the latter is, just a slow cancerous death.
But Coach, didn't I bring it up one other time on one of our other shows? Is that, and I brought it up, it might have been this show, is that there is this notion, and it actually comes back to the other point I was going to make about validity, because I sometimes think that people have different validity mechanisms based on their generations and all along those lines and everything. I personally think that that's why some of our young folks are caught up in the gang war, because that's where they're finding validity at. But with the relationship aspect, I'm thinking about how there was a number of times that I was in bad relationships. I knew they were bad relationships, but I wouldn't ask people what they thought of the relationship, because one, I was afraid of the answer, and two, even if they give me the answer that they probably should have given me. And I've had some people tell me that they knew it was a bad relationship after the relationship had ended and everything. And I would go ask them, I'd say, well, why didn't you tell me that? And they would basically, without saying it, say, because you wouldn't have listened. We could have told you all day long, but you wouldn't have listened. You were so caught up in that notion. There's an expression, and the expression I'm getting ready to use and everything about your nostrils being wide open and all along those lines. So your nose is so wide open that they could have told you that Hitler himself was the best person, was the worst person, which he was in the world, and you're gonna be sitting there going like, "Nah, he's a great guy. He's amazing and everything." So you're so caught up in the relationship because that's what they feel, that they wouldn't bother telling you, because if they told you, you're not gonna listen to them.
Love is blind, as they say.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at what Micah is saying.
Until you realize everything that you were and have been has gotten you to who you are now. Nothing is a mistake. I completely agree with that. And Shannon says,
Yes.
everyone saw it but me until I wanted to see it. I would even challenge that to say until you were ready to see it.
I would agree with that until you're ready
Yeah,
to see
I would agree with that because we see it. We see the red flags all the time.
You see the red flags? The red flags can be staring you in the face all day long, and you're going to ignore them.
You upside the head.
An excuse for them and everything. But yeah, there were several red flags that I saw and everything. And ironically, and I'm just gonna throw it out there because they might be even listening now and everything. One of those red flag relationships is we are now back on friendship terms. I would not say that we're gonna start a relationship, even though some people have bounced back and done that in their life and everything. But even we have acknowledged that there were red flags that we both saw because they've recently come back into the life and everything. But both of us have acknowledged that there were red flags that we saw in the relationship, but we're so caught up in it that we didn't want to acknowledge those red flags. And that's something that you have to have with growth.
Look at Shannon's comment because that's where I say we got to stay in balance. She says, now all I see are red flags.
Right.
Yep.
All of too much of anything is bad.
Yep.
You know, too much of now all I'm looking for is red flags is not a good situation either. So, but did you have something, Lauren? Because I want to jump on Micah's point.
Well, I was just going to add in there that like dealing, especially with relationships, like sometimes all we want to see is the good and the bad in people. And there are both to everybody. So it's not a bad thing to want to see the good in people as long as you see the reality. Somebody can have very good qualities and traits about them that attract you, but it can still not be a good relationship for you. So you have to make sure you're looking at it from multiple points of view. And sometimes we don't want to, and we choose to only live through one of those.
Right.
Before you get to this point, Coach, but that comes down to the red flags, because one of the things with red flags is that a lot of people have, and maybe Mike and Shannon might agree with this too, have their, because I've even seen it in Facebook groups and everything, they're break dead things, the things of no return. There are certain principles that people have in their life that they can't accept in a relationship. Like there are certain people that will never ever, and I kind of joked about it yesterday because I know that I'm somewhat sloppy. They'll never ever date a messy, westy, or a sloppy person and everything. And as soon as they come into an environment that's sloppy, it's automatically over. It doesn't matter how much you tell them you're going to change. It's over just because they've seen the mess that is their drop dead point and everything along those lines. Whereas I sometimes think that some of those are too entrenched because you can sometimes work on improving a person. I'm not saying you can improve everybody, but you can sometimes work on improving a person. So I do think that sometimes people are entrenched on their drop deads and are kind of like that notion of being too many red flags, aren't willing to help the person, guide them to being a better version of themselves.
Yeah, because no one is perfect, and we're judging that person, and we sit in a place of imperfection ourselves. So, as the word would say, he who lives in a glass house, let him throw the first stone.
Yep.
I mean, there's a mic drop.
Yep. 100%.
But Micah said, until you realize everything you were and have been has gotten you to where you are now, nothing is a mistake, which takes me to point 6. Misses only matter misses only matter when they distract us from our next shot or our next opportunity. And I'm not talking about, and I guess I could be talking about a basketball shot too, but misses are going to happen. We had talked about that earlier. Failures are going to happen. We can't control that in all situations. It only matters if it affects your next shot or your next opportunity or your next situation or your next move or your next relationship.
Doesn't that play to what Michael just says? Look at Michael's quote. When you see yourself as a beautiful result of your experience, you go from victim to alchemist.
Yes.
Yes, I didn't even see it. I was talking. Wow. Come on, girl. Well, that's my sister. We're so linked anyway. That's so good.
And if you have not read the book The Alchemist, speaking of that, please do. Side note, it's
Okay.
fantastic.
She also said she's laughing at the
Yeah.
idea of perfect or normal, and that can also be problematic because I've seen some people that have this. That's kind of where I'm going with validity and everything. Have this notion of perfection, and they want everything to be perfect. And like you just said, Coach, nobody is perfect. I mean, I've joked about it, and don't take this wrong. Please don't take it as sacrilegious. But where the most perfect person that we know, if you're a religious person, is Jesus Christ Himself. And as far as I'm concerned, even though there's no documentation of it, Jesus Christ was a baby at some point. So Jesus Christ had to do something that was imperfect in that sense because He did what babies do. I'm sure that to Mary, He was up there crying and doing other things that babies do because I just can't see a baby that doesn't at least cry maybe when they're walking by the river Nile and everything along those lines, or doesn't do any accident that babies and even sometimes humans will do as they get older and everything. So I'm thinking that there had to be that sense of imperfection. Now, when he was an adult and do miracles as a teenager, given that was a perfect time, but even then, he might have had some arguments that we don't know about with the disciples, and they might have always agreed. But I don't know that. I wasn't there. Neither were you, Lauren or Coach G. I don't know, Coach G. You might have been there.
I wasn't there. Well,
won't pretend to be there.
Yeah. So I think we've had some really good points. These first six points were like hard-hitting punching points. And I think these next four that we close out, and we're close to our time, but these next four, let's chew on, because I think these are our way, Misfits Managed Nation, of Lauren and I bringing encouragement to you.
Yeah.
To you. So point 6 or point 7, you've got to have or be in a place where you have tunnel vision.
Yep.
And a very short memory when it comes to making mistakes. When it comes to falling, you've got to look at it, evaluate it, learn the lesson, let it go, and move on. I'm going to say that again. You've got to have tunnel vision and a very short memory when it comes to making mistakes and falling. The recipe for that is you've got to look at the situation, evaluate it, learn the lesson that is required. That's a jewel of the journey. That's a different show.
Yep.
Let it go. That's release. And now move on. What do you guys say to that?
But in that same sense and everything, and that's kind of where I was going at earlier when I mentioned this word and everything. And I know I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it sometimes. And I'm going to be out there and have some mark session right now. But I appreciate this, Coach and Lauren and everything. But I know that even when I do events, I think that I'm pretty good at events, not just the podcast that I do here and everything, but also when I do MCing and everything. And I know for a fact that sometimes when I do those events, and not everybody does this, but I know I'm guilty of it, I look for validity, and I know what I'm doing, and I go out there and I'm like asking people, how did I do? I've already got in my head that I think I did a good job, but because I want assurance, I ask for that validity and everything. So I do sometimes seek that validity, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do know that I'm guilty of that, and I've done it even at major festivals. I mean, I used to do it regularly at the Blues Festival because my brother and my dad and occasionally my mom, when she lives in a different town, would be there. That's why she wasn't there all the time. But I would go and say, how'd I do? Was I good? And I even did it with the road trip. I told you I used to do that for 10 years and everything. But I'd get my assessment from outside sources. So that notion of needing validity.
So, Mark, I would encourage you to do something.
Yes.
I would encourage you to reframe. Still ask, but reframe. And instead of saying, did I do good? Say, what did you like? Because you're already your worst critic,
right.
as are we all. So we don't need to ask people what they made. In some cases, yes, where's the opportunities for improvement? But in that case, what did you like?
Right.
Focus on that so that you can then, it automatically is affirming of, find something you like. What did I do? Great.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And to Lauren's point there, what about building ourselves up to be so strong that self-accusation, can never say that word.
Self-accusation. I have a hard word though.
I know, I never can get it out, but that steps in and your opinion or validation of yourself is stronger than the external validation.
Yep.
That's powerful.
Oh, it's very powerful. But the flip side of that, and I joked about it on one of these past shows and everything, is that one of the jokes that my dad makes and everything, and he makes it lightly, but he does it, and he doesn't say it in a bad way, is that because I am known in this community, meaning in Durham and everything, and Dad's a well-known artist. Don't get me wrong; he's regionally known and everything else, but there are certain circles around here that he's known as Mark's dad. So he jokes about that when I go visit him. He's going like, "Oh yeah, I am not Jim Lee to the certain population of Durham. I am Mark's dad." So that is, and I'm sure there are people in your life, Lauren, and there are people, Coach G, that you are their dad, their coach, their whatever, and everything. But
Yep.
you only have that title and everything. So sometimes we are identified by things that we have no control over. Because, like I said, he's the one that birthed me. Mom birthed me, but he's the one that brought me into the world along with mom and everything. But he's saying it in a proud way because he's glad that these people are recognizing the things that I am doing. But he's also kind of like he becomes an afterthought, and he kind of makes a joke about it.
Right.
Well, so Gary, all this stuff kind of breeds perfectly into point 8, where we don't give our minds credit for the power they hold into.
Come on, girl. Come on.
For real though, we don't give our minds credit for the power they hold, and sometimes, yes, that is unfortunately being our worst critic, but we can choose not to focus on that, and we can choose to focus on this is what I did great. I already know what I would change. Train your mind to work the right way, because
Right.
they are powerful. They are incredible things. Tell it how you want it to work instead of letting it control you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad Mike is in the background and everything, because this is something I've been also curious about. It kind of plays into what we're talking about and everything. But I know that one of the things that I am notorious for, some of my friends that are in the same field are notorious for it. Even you two may be notorious for in the speaker circuit and everything. But I'm just wondering, how much are we tempted to want to critique things that we are in the field of? Because I know that I have a hard time going to a concert because I love the music, I love the play, but because of I'm being in the game, I also am watching some of the things that other people are not paying attention to, and all along those lines. I'm sure you do the same thing when you go to football games. You're probably seeing plays that other folks don't see and things along those lines. I had a cousin that was a coach, and he eventually became an assistant athletic director at our Raleigh school, and that's what his principal had to tell him, was that you got to stop trying to coach from the stands. Your job is to be the assistant athletic director. You cannot be the coach, even though you might have an opinion about that particular player or not. So the reason I said that Mike is in the audience is because I sometimes wonder, and I have friends that are restaurateurs, if when she goes out, does she sit there critiquing the dishes and wondering what she would have done differently and along those lines. So if you're listening, Mike, I'd love to know whether you critique other restaurants when you're out there, because I know I do that sometimes. Like, it's not like I make a big bitch session out of it, but it's what I'm doing in my head. I'm not like maybe talking to my circle of friends and everything.
So
Oh,
I got
ahead.
one big point first, because this applies to Micah as well, I believe. I talked to my training manager a couple weeks ago about this, and I asked him to critique a video that I sent him of myself, and he made a point to tell me that when somebody, unless he is told to critique it to give the feedback that they want, he watches it for pure enjoyment.
Right.
So there has to be that as well. You have to be able to go into something just for pure enjoyment, just like food. You have to be able to go to a restaurant and enjoy the food. You can switch into the mindset of, oh, I need to now critique this. Sure, I can do that, but life can't just always be all critiquing, or else you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, I think you got to be present.
Yeah.
That would be my answer. I think you got to take time to be present. So me being a basketball coach, to your point, Mark, I would do it all the time. I'd go to games and I'm like, Coach should have called a timeout right there. Coach should have made this play. He should have stalled right there. He should have done this press. No, now I go to the game and be present
Right.
and just enjoy. So like
Yep.
my sons would coach, Dad, how did I do? You won the game, so obviously you did well, because I got to a place where I just sat and enjoyed the game.
Right.
You know, I'm a basketball perfectionist, so I just enjoyed the game. So
And that's what I
Yep.
did this weekend, because I went there at the center that I mentioned. We had a concert, I think it was Sunday, and it was a Latin concert. I don't know anything about Latin music other than I enjoyed it. So I enjoyed the sound, and I actually knew some of the musicians. But no, I was in that moment, I was not being critical, even though it was in my building and everything. I was going like, hey, they sound good. So I'm going to sit here and sway to the beat and get my salsa groove on. Not that I really can salsa dance, but at least dance to the sounds, because they were playing the music of Celia Cruz. So I enjoyed the music for the music's sake, to your point.
Yep.
well, and this is a shout out to Shannon, because Shannon says she really needed this tonight and is thanking us. So Shannon, this is why we do what we do. So we are blessed and honored that, number one, you're listening and supporting, but that the content that we speak on is reaching your heart and ministering to you in the space that you're in. That's the power of technology. That's the power of Pod TV, getting the message out. So
Yep.
we're excited that's helping you.
Yep. Absolutely.
I just want to throw another point out there, because we're down to 2. Again, just a space of encouragement is, don't settle for just getting by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do it in a way that separates you from everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
In a way it's never been done before. Leave the situation better than what you found it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, Mark, do you know who said that?
Now, who was the direct quote? But as they were saying it, I was going to think to myself that is something that I think we all run across too, is this notion of wanting to be just all right with being all right. And I've known that I've been guilty of that as well. And sometimes you need to achieve to be better than all right, and to make yourself the best version of yourself and everything. But I'm not saying that an average person, if that is their top level, because some people are only going to be average, can be just average and everything, but you should always strive to be your best version, is the word I was looking for.
So Coach Prime is where I got that from.
Okay, cool.
He teaches that, leave everything better than what you found it.
Right.
And then I've got to battle that comment you just made, because this is to you and Lauren. Let's say, so would you guys agree that everything God made is great and not average?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, okay. We sit here in unison that everything God made is great, not average. Well, doesn't that include you, Mark?
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Doesn't that include you, Lauren? Doesn't that include you, Coach G, and Micah, Shannon, all other Misfits Managed out there, nation? Doesn't that include you? Everything God made is great, and that includes you. You are that special. So yes, when you settle for being average, you live beneath your privilege, because you weren't created to be average. You were created to be great.
Yeah, I like that in theory. I guess the only pushback I would give to that is that not every Olympian is going to win a gold medal. I mean, they should strive to win a gold medal, but not every Olympian is going to win a gold medal, and not everybody's going to be 100-yard running back, to use the football analogy. And
I didn't say win. See, we equate being great as winning.
I was going to say the same thing.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Like they had to be, you have to be great to make it to that level.
Well,
you have to be, like, just because you don't win something doesn't mean that you are not great.
Mark, Shannon's coming at you now.
Yeah, I thought there's some great teams that never won a game. I mean, well, shucks, one of the greatest announcers. I don't think he ever won a NBA championship. Did Charles Barkley ever win a championship?
Was a great power forward and never won a championship.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. There have been some amazing players that never won a championship. So yeah, that will get me on that one. Y'all go over. You're gonna get to the 10th point.
Well, Shannon just came swinging at you, Mark.
I don't mind getting hit. And all along those lines, I did have like I said, we can get ready to wrap up if y'all want to. I see Lawrence gotten ready to wrap anyway. But I will just let y'all know, just because she was on the show last week because I did talk to her briefly today. So I'm just gonna put it out there so the Misfits Nation can know. I did talk to Kimberly, and she loved the show. She loved the nature of the show, and her exact words to me were, because she's one of those scheduled people and all of those lines, but sometimes they're scheduling her phone and email to you, because I think you reached out to her, Lauren. She basically said, tell me when they want me on the show and I will be there. So set a date and she will be on the show. So set the date and everything along those lines, and I will communicate it with her. But whatever date y'all want her on, y'all can have that email communications as so y'all can arrange what the topic is. But yeah, she is a success and everything. But
We're in the middle of scheduling, so we'll see what happens. And to honor my sister, because I know she's been through a lot this week and is exhausted. Thank you, Shannon. I'm gonna end on this point. So, and really, this is for Mark, this is for Lauren, this is for me, Coach G, and all of Misfits Managed Nation, Shannon, Micah, for all of us that felt we didn't measure up and we weren't enough, we didn't have enough, and we wanted to give up. We here at Misfits Managed Nations are here to tell you, look up, get up, and don't ever give up. That's right.
That was a serious mic drop. I know you're going to wrap up, Lauren, and I'm going to play your video and everything. Now, I do have to teach y'all. I don't think I've ever said this on this network and all along those lines, so this is going to be my 2 cents worth as we're going out the door. The first time I think I recognized I was a misfit and all along those lines was way back in high school. So we're talking some back in the late 70s and all along those lines. And I ran for a track team. You're going to love this coach. But the coach had a great, and I may have told you this before on another show, but he had a great philosophy. And that's how I recognized I was a misfit, because coming back to this notion that not everybody has to win, his idea of picking the team, and I became like his number one recruiter by helping other people join the team and everything, was to run us to death and all along those lines, and do that for about 2 weeks and everything. And if you survive that run, you were on the team. Didn't matter how good you were, but you were on the team if you survived and all along those lines. So like I said, I knew I might have had aspirations of being a marathon runner, even aspirations of being a good mile runner. I was Charlie Brown on my team. I never won a race, never even come close to winning a race, but I did survive, and that's how I made the team. And I did that for 4 years, because I think you could start in the 9th grade. So 9th through 12th grade, I made the team, because his idea, and I don't even know if that coach is still living, was to run us to death, and if you survived, you made the team. So that's how I made it.
Mark, look up, get up, don't ever give up. Lauren,
that's basically what he did. He was like, just run it, keep on running. If you survive, I don't care how good you are, you're going to be on this team.
I think what I would end with is, there's only one way to go when we fall, and that is up. We get up and we don't give up. We will fall. Just don't stay down.
Right. Exactly. As Micah says.
Yep. And with that, we are out.
Yeah, it's been another great show of Misfits Managed, and this is your boy, Coach G.
And Lauren.
And I'm going to actually go out with that video that Lauren sent me, so we're going to get on out of here.
Hey, Misfits Managed Nation. Thank you so much for watching tonight. I so appreciate you. I know Gary and I both appreciate you. I wanted to let you know, though, that being a misfit doesn't stop here. It is a piece of you, and it is a piece that we have to live with every day. But the good news is we can make good from being a misfit, even though it is chalked up to being a bad thing. Let's talk about how to make being a misfit is good. Let us talk about being a phoenix and rising from the ashes. And I want to help you do that through Forged by Fire. That is how you can work with me. And we would do coaching, we can do consulting, we can do one-on-one or group. I also do speaking opportunities. But let's get that inner misfit shining the way you were meant to.